Razabani for IFL TV in association with MTK Global. With me on Zoom today, my man, the Omen himself, Mr. Spencer Oliver. Spencer, how are we doing?
Yeah, Raz, all good, mate. How are you?
I'm good, not too bad. A bit more positive today. Obviously, we've had some decent news at the beginning of this week from our great Prime Minister. So hopefully back to normality soon in a few months' time.
Yeah, it's given everybody a little sort of glimmer of hope, isn't it? Like, do you know what I mean? It's I don't know about you, mate, but this second lockdown's been tough for me. Like the first one was all right because I think we had the sunshine and it was all like all our lives are hectic, and so it was like, you know what, this ain't too bad. Kicking back in the back garden, couple of beers, doing a bit of radio, bit of Sky from indoors on Zoom, and it all seemed good. But like this second one, man, it's been difficult. So that news couldn't have come at a better time, if I'm honest. There's been a lot of people out there struggling, a lot of people struggling physically and mentally, man. So yeah, it's difficult.
Now, hopefully, we won't be having this conversation again anytime soon. Hopefully it ends in the next couple of months and we can go back to normality. Spencer, just want to go back to last weekend. We saw another Josh take his first professional defeat in the boxing ring. A lot of people said it was too soon for him. I know the fight had been on and off for a couple of years, but sometimes fighters dare to be great and they want to jump in and mix it in with that next level of status of fighters. How did you assess the fight before it happened, and then what was your assessment when it happened?
Look, I always knew it was going to be a risky fight to take. Avanesian's a great fighter. You know, he's a former world champion, current European champion, and still very much at the top of his game. So it was always going to be a big gamble. Josh Kelly's one of the best prospects we've got in the country. His skill set is unbelievable, but he was untested at that level. Look, I won a European title in my 11th fight. We took the gamble and it paid off. But it doesn't mean that Kelly's career is over by no stretch of the imagination. And people are going, oh, it's going to be difficult for him to come back. It's not going to be difficult for him to come back. He can take it as a learning process. I think Adam Booth's a great trainer. They took the gamble. It didn't work. And I think he just needs to go back to the drawing board, regroup. I think that welterweight, by the way, is not his weight. I think he's bigger than that. I think he looks like really a super welter. He looked much bigger than Avanesian on the night. So I'm not sure how much he struggles to make the weight, but he's massive at it. You know, so maybe, go back, regroup. Does he come back at welter? Does he come back at super welter? But, you know, he's still got a bright future, man. He's a great fighter, and it's just one of those fights that didn't pay off, but a great learning experience for him. You know, he started the fight well, started it really well. First couple of rounds, he was really good. And then Avanesian used his experience and just wore him down. Got a knockdown. Was it in the third round knockdown? I think it was a fourth round. So he knocked him down in the fourth round and he never recovered from there. Avanesian used his skills, does what he does best, kept his hands high, just kept forcing the pace. What would I do? What would I change about Kelly? I think he needs to realise that at this level, you can't get away with certain things like dropping your hands as much as he does, because he makes little fundamental mistakes there and he gets caught. And if you get caught at that level, you stay caught because these fighters know how to capitalise on that. So, I think he just needs to go back to the drawing board and work on what he's got and maybe tighten up his defences a little bit. But, you know, I'm not too worried that he can't come back from that. I think that Adam Booth, by the way, done a great thing by throwing the towel in. I think the fight we saw the week before with Josh Warrington, when he was boxing Lara, that was concerning for me because Warrington, the fight should have been stopped there. Howard Foster should have stopped that fight in the fourth round. He was totally gone. Howard Foster give him all the opportunity to walk back to the corner, which he struggled to do, come out, still didn't look particularly good in the fifth round. And I think that went on 4 rounds too long. And when you see that, it starts to become uncomfortable viewing. Look, I'm the best man in the world ever to talk about this because I've been through these experiences. You know, things have happened to me and it's a dangerous sport. And you can see the signs. And you know, I think that fights like that went on too long. What Adam Booth effectively done, the reason I'm using that as a comparison is because what Adam Booth effectively done was stop him from taking any further punishment. You know, when he went over, he got back up and the referee would have possibly let that fight go on. He would have took another 7 or 8 unanswered shots for no reason, and that would have damaged him even more. So I think it was a great decision by Adam throwing the towel in, and he can go back and regroup and come back again. This now it tells us how good he'll be. You know, it happened to David Ahay once early in his career when he boxed Cole Thompson. early in his fight, about his 10th or 11th fight. He boxed Thompson, and it was too soon for him, and he ran out of gas, like Taylor did. Kelly did. He ran out of gas. He got stopped. He went back, regrouped, won the cruiserweight title, won the world heavyweight title. So sometimes it can be the making of a fighter.
I know you talk about the defense, he maybe needs to tighten his defense, but isn't it Adam Booth's style to have that left hand down? We've seen it with David Haye, George Groves. We're seeing it now with Josh Kelly. We've seen it with Harlem Eubank and other fighters in the gym as well. Isn't that just the style of Adam Booth?
Well, it is a style, but sometimes styles don't work. Like what I'm saying is, at a certain level, what you've got to do, Raz, in this sport, is that you have to adapt to certain styles. Now, we knew Avanesian was a very tough guy, walks forward with his hands high, and he waits, and he counter punches with explosive punches, and he can whack a little bit as well. You know, so I spoke to Cole Greaves actually earlier on TalkSport today. And he said, we knew the style, we knew what he was doing. So we had a game plan and we executed it and done it perfectly. You know, and I think that what Josh Kelly needs to realize is at that level, sometimes it doesn't work with your hands down like that. You do, you know, if that's your style, carrying your hands low, there's no reason why you can't pick your hands up. It's not changing a style. It's just being better defensively. And in this sport, offense is great, but defense is even better, you know, and I think that's the part of his game that he needs to work on. He's got great hand speed. He's got every shot in the book. He's got great foot movement. Let's start tightening up the defense as well. You can't always get away with keeping your hands down.
I know Adam Booth's always rated Josh Kelly and said, you know, he's ready for the big boys now. And I know you won your European title in around your 11th fight. But is it important to go through kind of the British level, the Commonwealth level, to go through those stages to get the experience? Because there's no rush. You're young. You've got your career ahead of you. Just learn and get the valuable experience.
Listen, that's my biggest regret in my career. So what happened with me was, after my 10th fight, I won my Southern Area title. We won Fight of the Year, me and Patrick Wellington. I got offered a voluntary shot against the then European champion. I looked at the guy and thought, yeah, I fancy that. And I'd done it, and Martin Krestev, and I knocked him out in 4 rounds. But then that all of a sudden has catapulted me. I'm now number 5 in the world. And I'm a kid of like 22 who's only had, you know, a handful of fights. And I've got a boxer. Now every fight started becoming a really demanding, really tough fight because you're at that level. And I had another 4 or 5 European title defenses. 4 or 5 European title defenses. And they were tough fights, mate. Like, you know what I'm saying? So what I'm saying, there's no step backwards. So there's no harm in like trying to learn your trade a little bit on the road and all that. Listen, I get what times we're living in now with these fights going on behind closed doors, etc. You know, 50-50 fights are being made. Fighters are, you know, not getting the chance to build their careers like they'd like to. They're getting the opportunity and jumping in there and taking them. But I think with Kelly, you know, I think that going through that route of, you know, going through the British, Commonwealth, and then European title, getting that experience at that level is a must, you know, and I think that proved on Saturday night. Avanesian had the experience; he knew what to do, you know, and that was the difference, you know. But I still think Kelly's a great fighter. I still think he can do things. Still think he can come back, but things do have to be changed as well. Adam can do that. Adam's a great trainer. You know, it's not like he doesn't know what went wrong. He would have known it was a calculated risk and it just never paid off. That's boxing, man. That's what happens.
He was also out of the fight ring for around 18 months. He had a nasty cut somewhere on the back of his head as well.
Yeah, he did.
You know, when in the first knockdown, it didn't seem like he was really badly hurt. It looks like he needed kind of a bit of a breather.
Yes.
Referee counted to about 7 or 8, carried on. Do you think it was definitely the weight?
Well, listen, he needed a breather. And Avanesian was never going to give him a breather because that's his style. Like once he knew, because you're right, he wasn't badly hurt when he got knocked out in the 4th round, but Avanesian knew he could hurt him, and he knew that if he kept his foot on the gas, that you could break him, and that's exactly what happened. It was tactically perfect from the Avanesian camp. So yeah, look, like I say, I think that it could be down to weight. I'm one. No one's talked about that before. It's just something I'm just looking at. I'm looking at it as a fan, and I know, again, through struggling to make weight when I was boxing, how difficult it is and what it takes out of you in the later rounds. Kelly, you know, sort of blows up after 5 or 6 rounds. Why is that? I think it's just down to weight. He's huge for the weight. Look at the size of them two. I mean, did you watch the fight, Rav? I don't know what you thought, but I thought straight away they're 2 weight divisions apart. They just looked like it was quite weird to watch. But, you know, and as the fight unfolded, we see Kelly just come apart quick.
Well, let's hope we can see him back in the ring quite quickly and soon. Spence announced also on the show was a slight delay in the heavyweight rematch between Dillian Whyte and Alexander Povetkin. They pulled it about 3 weeks now. It's taking place in Gibraltar. It's been delayed about 3 times now. So is that now? I know Dill's probably happy that it's going in Gibraltar. He doesn't have to come to the UK and quarantine. But when you've got a training camp and you're planning your sparring and your strength days and your cardio days, etc., does this constant delay, does that help? Does that play with your mind?
I think maybe in Dillian's case it helps because that was a bad knockout, man, a really bad knockout, and he's going into the immediate rematch. He's still going to have those demons in his head. I don't care what he say. I know as an ex-fighter, when them spotlights come on you, you're doing that ring walk, mate. Things are going round in your head. The last thing Dillian remembers is getting whacked with that uppercut. So I think that time is only going to work in Dillian's favour. Yeah, you're right. Because of all the restrictions, etc., the fight hasn't ended up here. It was meant to be at Wembley. They pushed it back 3 weeks. Gibraltar. Hopefully they'll get some crowd in there, which will benefit Dillian as well. He didn't like the fact that he was boxing in this eerie sort of, like no atmosphere sort of environment. So yeah, I think it's just going to work into his favour. But it's a risky fight, mate. It really is. I think as every month that goes past, Povetkin's not getting any younger, but he didn't show any signs of any sort of deterioration in the last one, did he? I mean, he recovered from a couple of big knockdowns. Hand speed was good. Tactically, he was spot on. He was coming in low, looking for those uppercuts. And that's the shot that Dillian's vulnerable to. He carries his hands out quite wide. And when he comes in, when they get in close, he goes square. If you notice in the last fight, he sort of comes in and he goes square. And that's dangerous for someone like Povetkin. He's got a wealth of experience, man. Like, this guy's an Olympic champion, a former world champion. He knows how to fight. So a lot's riding on this for Dillian. It really is, because a loss here would spell the end at the top tier. And if that's the case, then it's going to be difficult to get back up there. So not saying his career is over, but I'm saying a loss could be really damaging. So he needs this win. So he's got to get it right. So I understand why he's delayed it. He wants everything right and he wants everything on his terms. And so the fight goes ahead, in 3 weeks later in Gibraltar. Let's hope we can get out there, man. I'm not even sure we can get out there. Let's see.
Hopefully on Eddie's private jet.
Yeah, exactly. Come on, Eddie, sort yourself out. Let's get charter a plane or something.
I believe that is the plan, to plot the chain.
It is, mate. It is. It's just, I suppose what it comes down to is how many seats are on that plane that are spare. Let's see.
Spence, 2 days away for the return. Back in the ring, we've got Canelo. He was only out around 8 weeks ago against Callum Smith.
Yeah.
Is this a sign of a great fighter? He just wants to stay active.
This guy's been around for such a long time, gone through the weight divisions. Like you said, only boxed 8 weeks ago. Now he's in with Yildirim. It's a fight that he wins. Yildirim lost in 3 rounds to Eubank Jr. It's a fight that he wins. I think it's a staying active fight, staying busy fight for the Billy Joe Saunders fight, because he's signed a deal with Eddie Hearn. Eddie Hearn's co-promoting this one with Canelo. A 2-fight deal. When that second one will probably be Billy Joe Saunders, the number 1, number 2 super middleweights at the time, Canelo Saunders, fight that we all want to see. I know it's a fight that Billy wants. So it sort of makes sense, really. He's just ticking over. But yeah, it's just a sign of a great champion, isn't it? Like 8 weeks ago and he's back in there again. He doesn't need to do it. It's not for any financial reason that he's doing it. He just loves it. He's a tough guy to beat, man. He really is. I mean, if you look at what he done to Callum Smith, you thought, that's the one guy, I thought that's the one super middleweight that could actually beat him. And he dominated from the opening bell. He just broke Smith down. He made him work without even throwing any punches. He was just using his feet, putting him under pressure with his feet. His head movement has improved unbelievably, Canelo's. And then he just, and every shot he throws is a power punch. And he just broke Smith down, man. That started to become uncomfortable to watch sort of the last 4 rounds. And Smith's a great fighter. So it's a tough fight for Billy. It really is.
A lot of people say Billy's probably one of the toughest, can come closest to beating Canelo because of his style, his feet movement, southpaw, etc. But the reality is Billy's really only stepped up to the gas 2 or 3 times. I think it was Lemieux, Andy Lee. How convinced are you that Billy can put on a performance against Canelo?
Listen, like you say, he's a slick southpaw, but I'm just concerned of the way that Canelo dealt with Callum Smith. And that was so now I'm going, wow, Billy's biggest problem is Yes, Billy does box off the back foot, and his biggest problem is, can he keep Canelo away for 12 rounds? Canelo, as we saw against Smith, is unbelievable, cutting the ring off, pressuring his fighter, making his fighter work, tires his fighter out without even actually throwing any shots. And everything he throws is a big, heavy shot. So, look, it's a tough fight, man. But I know it's one that Billy wants. That Billy's been in the game a long time now, 2-weight world champion, and these are the fights that they crave, that he craves. So, yeah, I just think it's a tough night, mate. I really do. If there's another super middleweight in the world that can beat him, it would be Billy Joe, because now Callum's lost to him. I'll put Billy Joe there. But it's a tough night.
Spent last one for me. Obviously, Canelo's out this weekend. He says he wants to be out in May, September, and then again at the end of the year. That's potentially 4 times the number 1 pound for pound fighter is going to be fighting this year. Is that message to the rest of the fighters, where we see a lot of fighters, especially at the top level, across all promoters, that get paid very well, and they're content with just having that one fight. It's completely dominated by money, and that legacy and Hall of Fame factor is almost extinguished from fighters nowadays.
100%, mate. Like, when you look at what Canelo's doing, what, you know, like, it shows you how much he's in love with the sport, and that's a big thing. If you're passionate about what you do, you know, he doesn't want one fight, go off partying, get himself fat and out of shape, come back and then regroup. He does what great fighters do. You know, Mayweather was like that. Mayweather's a great fighter, kept himself in condition the whole time, and all they want to do is fight, live, eat, sleep boxing. And that's what Canelo is. That's why he'll go down as one of the all-time greats. He's got to, for what he's done, for what he's achieved so far. And you've got to take your hat off for him, man. Like, look at this guy talking about fighting like 4 times in a year. A guy of that level. They're all super fights, you know, like, it's mad. Yeah, so, yeah, I've got nothing but respect for him. You know, he went up, listen, I always thought he was one of the greatest fighters of our modern era. But after what I saw him do with Callum, for me, I was just like, this guy is untouchable. He's unbeatable.
I know I said last question, but this is the last question because you said he's one of the great fighters. People are actually saying now, by the time he retires, he could be the greatest Mexican fighter.
Yeah, I agree with that. You know, we've had some great ones, you know, in the past, from Eric Morales and Marco Antonio Barrera, you know, the smaller guys. But, yeah, I think so, man. I think so, you know. I think that he could be one of the greatest, if not he will be the greatest, actually. If you look at his resume, who he's boxed, who he's gone through and everything else, you know, it's going to take some beating, man. And I just don't see any sign of slowing up. And like, these guys now, he's not even boxing in his own weight division. Look at the size of, like, Yildirim when they done the head-to-head. Look at the size of, even more funny, when he boxed Callum Smith. I mean, they look like, you know what I mean, like 4 weight divisions apart. He's just like, he's a tiny guy for a super middle. But look at the way that he's boxing these people and beating them. It's like, it's mad. So, yeah, I think he will go down as the greatest Mexican of all time.
Okay, all right, Spence. I don't think we've got any boxing in the UK this week. I think Frank Warren show gets cancelled. This week. One of the main fighters has tested positive, and then I think we look forward to, obviously, Okoli and then Dillian Whyte.
Yeah, can't wait, man. Like, Okoli's he's getting his opportunity for the world title. I think he wins that as well, by the way. Glowacki's a good fighter, though. He's dangerous. You know, he's a very dangerous fighter. Lost to Breedis in the semi-finals, didn't he, of the World Boxing Super Series? But very heavy-handed. So it's the acid test for Okoli. But I think he comes through that, man. I like him. I like his attitude to the sport. So that's going to be good, man. Looking forward to that. And obviously, Dillian Whyte. Come on, Dillian. Let's get revenge. We don't want a repeat. Let's get revenge.
Spence Oliver, IFL TV. Thank you very much.
Wicked. Cheers, bro.